Welcome to IDIS online training for CDBG entitlement grantees. This is an online course developed by Lockheed Martin and sponsored by HUD's Office of Block Grant Assistance. My name is Bill Kubel with USONA Development, and I will be one of your trainers. The primary audience of this course will be staff at the grantee level who are tasked with entering CDBG data into the HUD IDIS system. Both new users of IDIS and those of you with experience should find the course beneficial. One of the main objectives of this course is to learn how to use the IDIS system to help tell the story of how CDBG benefits your community. As a grantee, IDIS will help you showcase your accomplishments and demonstrate accountability to HUD and your community. By inputting data correctly into IDIS, you will also help HUD tell the CDBG story at the national level. IDIS is the only tool HUD has to collect, aggregate, and report CDBG accomplishments. If the data is not entered correctly or in a timely fashion, HUD is not able to fully demonstrate the effectiveness of the CDBG program. Through this course, you will learn how to correctly input CDBG data throughout the program year. You will learn how to add accomplishments at the beginning of the program year and how to provide accurate and timely accomplishment data for those activities at the end of the year. The course is divided into a series of standalone modules. If you have some experience with IDIS, feel free to skip around and just watch the parts interesting to you. If you are a new user, it is recommended that you watch each module in order and only skip those parts that you are sure that you do not need. Each module has a set of slides and a data entry tutorial. The slides will preview the key points and provide some background on related CDBG regulations. After the slides, the video will walk you through the data entry process, step by step and field by field. The best way to learn IDIS is to get hands-on practice. It is recommended that you watch the data entry tutorial and then repeat the steps in UAT, the User Acceptance Testing region of IDIS. The UAT region of IDIS is a copy of your real data. You can make as many mistakes as you want, and it will not affect your real data. I will explain how to access the UAT region at the end of this module. In order to access the UAT region of IDIS, you will need to have an IDIS ID and a separate IDIS password for the UAT region. You will most likely need to call the Technical Assistance Unit to reset your password for the UAT region. It's not the same password that you normally use to access IDIS. Before getting started, you may want to download and print the course materials available on the website. These include the IDIS Online Training Manual for CDBG. Make sure you download the right version. There is a version for entitlement grantees and a different version for states. The slides, case studies, and additional materials are also available. The next few slides will provide a short summary of how IDIS fits in with the administration of the CDBG program and some key points to remember when entering data. Additional information can also be found in Chapter 1 of the Training Manual. IDIS is a real-time online database, meaning that HUD can access the information you provide as soon as it is saved to the system. IDIS is designed to collect data on each of the 4 CPD formula programs, including CDBG, HOME, ESG, and HAPWA, as well as some of the Recovery Act funding. IDIS stands for Integrated Disbursement and Information System. When HUD awards CDBG funds to a grantee, the funds are held in a treasury account until the funds are expended. IDIS is like an ATM and allows the grantees to request disbursements from their treasury account on an as-needed basis. On the information side, IDIS provides the grantee a way to report how the funds disbursed were CDBG eligible, how they met a national objective, and what was accomplished with the funds. This data is used by the HUD Field Office to ensure that the use of CDBG funds is in compliance with the federal regulations. While IDIS may seem like a trivial part of the grants management process, the importance of accurate and timely data cannot be overstated. The IDIS data is used on a regular basis to evaluate the effectiveness of the CDBG program. In addition to HUD, IDIS information is reviewed by Congress, the Office of Management and Budget, the General Accounting Office, and the Office of the Inspector General. It is important to note that missing, inaccurate, or incorrect data can present a misleading and sometimes negative picture of program accomplishments. Let's review the data entry tasks for a program year. In IDIS, the order of the process is important. You have to do step 1 before you do step 2. For example, you must create a project before adding an activity. Chances are you will only be assigned with completing some of the steps in the overall process. Clear communication with your coworkers in terms of roles and responsibilities is an important piece of using the system. The first thing you'll need to do is add projects for the new program year. The projects in IDIS will typically mirror the list of proposed projects in the action plan. Projects provide you a way to organize your data. You will see that there's not a lot of data collected at the project level. Most of the CDBG program data is entered at the activity level. For each project, you will set up at least one activity. At the beginning of the program year, you will need to complete the setup detail pages for an activity. Once you have the setup information entered for an activity, you can move to the next step, activity funding. Funding activities is part of the budgeting process. You are essentially taking CDBG funds from a funding source, such as your entitlement grant or program income, and committing a portion of those funds to a specific activity. Once you commit funds to an activity, you will be able to request a drawdown of those funds to pay for CDBG eligible expenses. As expenses are incurred throughout the year, you can use IDIS to request drawdowns to pay for those expenses. Once the drawdown is approved in IDIS, the funds are typically wire transferred to the grantee's bank account within 2 or 3 days. At the end of the program year, you need to provide accomplishment data for each open CDBG activity on the accomplishment detail screens. Even if the activity will continue into the next program year, you need to report accomplishments on an annual basis. If the activity has drawn all of its funds and you have input all of the required beneficiary data, you can also update the status of the activity to complete. On the next few slides, we will cover some of the key points on creating new activities and updating accomplishment data. It is important to understand what an IDIS activity represents. That's what we mean by defining the scope of an activity. For example, the activity may represent a grantee's entire housing rehabilitation program. On the other hand, the activity may represent a single property assisted in the rehab program. There are some cases where HUD dictates the number of activities you must set up. In other cases, the grantee has a choice as to how many activities they will use. When trying to determine how many activities you will need, a good rule of thumb is to ask the question, how many activities are necessary to document compliance with the selected national objective? The matrix code and national objective field are the two most important fields you will see during activity setup. The system will show you different screens based on the matrix code and national objective selected. For example, if you select Low Mod Area as your national objective, the system will ask you for census tracts in the target area receiving a CDBG benefit. Matrix codes are used to describe how the activity is an eligible use of CDBG funds. A key point is to select the most appropriate matrix code. During setup, you will also need to indicate how the activity will meet a national objective. Every use of CDBG funds other than planning and administration must meet a national objective. If you are new to CDBG, it is recommended that you download a copy of the CDBG Guide to National Objectives and Eligible Activities, also referred to as the CDBG Desk Guide. Having a good grasp of the CDBG program will make IDIS data entry easier and more understandable. A quick note regarding CDBG-R, the Recovery Act funding. An IDIS activity cannot be funded with both CDBG and CDBG-R. If the same project or scope of work is funded with both CDBG and Recovery Act funding, you will need to set up two separate IDIS activities, one for the CDBG-R Recovery Act funding and one for CDBG. In most cases, you will be able to use one activity to report on the accomplishments and national objective compliance for a CDBG funded project. In some cases, you may need more than one activity to demonstrate eligibility or compliance with the national objective. The following examples highlight when this is necessary. For the rehabilitation of a multi-unit property, the most common national objective used would be low and moderate income housing, or LMH. To demonstrate compliance with the LMH national objective, the grantee will have to show that at least 51% of the units are occupied by low and moderate income households. If the grantee provides assistance to more than one multi-unit property, each property would need to be entered as a separate IDIS activity, since each property has to demonstrate compliance with the 51% threshold on its own. For activities that meet the Low Mod Income Area, or LMA, national objective, each non-contiguous area has to be reported under a separate IDIS activity. For example, if the grantee does street improvements in two separate and distinct target areas, the grantee would need a separate IDIS activity for each neighborhood. In cases where the grantee provides direct financial assistance to a for-profit business in order to meet the Low Mod Job, or LMJ, national objective, the grantee must demonstrate that 51% of the jobs created by each business were given to or made available to low and moderate income persons. To report this in IDIS, the grantee would need to set up a separate IDIS activity for each business assisted. Matrix codes are used to describe how the IDIS activity is an eligible use of CDBG funds. At the end of this slide, pause the video and take a moment to review Appendix A of the training manual. The first page in Appendix A provides a nice summary of all of the matrix codes and groups them into categories. Take a close look at the matrix codes and public facilities. You will see they all begin with 03, and most are followed by a letter, such as 03A or 03B, to identify very specific types of facilities assisted. 03A is used for senior centers, and 03B is used for facilities that serve the disabled. The last code listed, 03 without a letter, is a general code for facilities. HUD would like you to use the codes with letters, and only use 03 as a last resort. If you look at the Public Services category, you will see a similar pattern. There are lots of specific codes and one catch-all general code, 05, for public service activities that do not fit with any of the more specific codes. Choosing the most appropriate matrix code is an important part of good reporting. If you are not sure which matrix code to use, Appendix A contains a short definition and guidance for each code. If you need additional guidance, refer to the CDBG desk guide or discuss the matter with your local HUD field office representative. Every CDBG activity, other than planning and administration, must meet a national objective. This slide lists the most commonly used national objectives. Please refer to Appendix B of the training manual for a complete list. A major reason for entering accomplishment data into IDIS is to demonstrate compliance with a national objective. The data needed to demonstrate compliance will be different for each national objective. Given this, the accomplishment detail screens will look different for each national objective. At the end of this slide, pause the video and look at the table of contents for the training manual. You will see that there is a separate chapter in the manual for each of the national objectives. This course will cover the Low Mod Housing, Low Mod Area, Limited Clientele, and Low Mod Jobs national objectives. Slum, Blight, and Urgent Need national objectives are covered in the manual but are not part of this online course. At the end of each program year, you will need to provide accomplishment data for each CDBG activity that was open during the program year. If time permits, you may find it helpful to update accomplishment data throughout the program year. By doing so, you can verify that you are collecting all of the required information for each activity. You will also cut down on the amount of data entry needed at the end of the program year. At a minimum, you must provide accomplishment data on an annual basis. The data entry for the program year should be entered in time so that it may be included in the Annual Performance Report, the CAPR, that is due to HUD within 90 days of the close of the program year. It is important to note that all CDBG accomplishment data is tracked by program year in which the accomplishment occurred, or when the benefit was realized. For example, if a facility that was funded in 2005 is completed and opened in 2010, the new facility would be reported as a 2010 accomplishment in IDIS. It is also important to note that IDIS will not require you to enter data in every field. Some fields may or may not apply to the activity you are working on. It is up to you, the grantee, to ensure that the data is entered when it is appropriate. When in doubt, refer to the training manual. The data collected for the National Objective Compliance, as well as other data, such as general accomplishment data and performance measurements, will change based on the matrix code and national objective selected. We will go into greater detail regarding accomplishment data as part of each module. At this point, let's learn how to log into IDIS and learn some of the basic navigation you will need to get around the system. If you want to follow along in IDIS, open another browser window and navigate to the web address listed on this slide. To access your real data, you will click on the link toward the top of the page that reads, "To log into IDIS online, click here." For this course, we will want to use the UAT test region of IDIS. The UAT region is a copy of your real data. In order to use the UAT region, you must already have an IDIS ID. If you do not yet have an ID, this web page includes instructions on how to obtain one. Unless you have used the UAT region before, you will need to call the IDIS help desk to reset your password for the UAT region. Your normal IDIS password will not work. The help desk is available at the number listed on this web page. Please note that it may take the help desk 1 or 2 days to update your password. Keep in mind, when the help desk does reset your password, this will not affect your normal IDIS password. To access the UAT region of IDIS, scroll down to the section entitled Training on the UAT Test Server. Click on the link External Users. Once you log in, you may be prompted to change your password. Your new password must be at least 8 characters long, contain 1 lowercase letter, 1 uppercase letter, and 1 number. Try to avoid passwords you have used in the past. Once you have changed your password, click on the Continue to IDIS button. The biggest rule in navigating IDIS is to avoid using the browser buttons. Only use the links and buttons included in IDIS to move from page to page. Keep in mind that the system will slow down during busy periods. Try to be patient if the system is slow. Clicking on a link or button while the system is already processing a request may cause the system to work even slower, or worse, freeze the system. Users on the East Coast may find the system works faster in the morning, and users on the West Coast will find that the system is faster at the end of the day. On the course website, there is a navigational map that details how these functions are organized. There is also a navigational tip sheet with more tips and tricks on getting around the system. The system is organized according to the blue tabs across the top of the page. Depending on the access privileges associated with your user ID, you may not see all of these tabs. Once you click on one of the tabs, you will see additional navigation links appear on the left side of the screen. When you are finished with IDIS, be sure to log out properly by clicking on the Logout link. If you close the browser window without logging out, the system will prevent you from logging back in for at least 20 minutes.